What's going on, guys? How's everybody doing? Hopefully, you're having a wonderful Friday. I am going to today just go over how to wholesale in general, how to source deals, how to make money in real estate. And we are basically going to just talk about that. So I'm just going to go straight into the basics. If you have no money, if you have some money, and if you have a lot of money. So let's start out here. Let's assume you have $0, okay? How are you going to find deals? So this is you, right? You're a happy camper, you want to make some money, but you have $0. So how are you going to find deals? So this is exactly how you're going to find deals. There's two main ways, and I'm not going to sugarcoat any of this. A lot of people you will hear or talk to are going to sugarcoat everything and make it sound easier than it is, but it's not easy. Let me tell you that. The business model is simple, but it's not easy to actually put in the work and do it. So your first option is to cold call. This whiteboard is really tough to draw with my mouse, so I apologize if it's terrible. Your first method is to cold call. So for cold calling, this is going to be you pull a list like we talked about with PropWire or something, and you run through it and you call them and you say, hey, my name's Caden. I was wondering if you would consider an offer on your property on 123 Main Street. Or say, hey, I had a quick question about your property on 123 Main Street. Different ways you can do it. Obviously, you want to have that pattern interrupt, which means something that catches the person off guard because they've most likely been called a million times. Once you cold call somebody and they say yes, you're going to negotiate with them. Check out some of my other videos to comp the property, and you're going to get it under contract, and then you're going to sell it to a buyer for a higher price. So you are the middleman. The easiest way that I explain wholesale real estate to people who are kind of like 20 to 35 who know what drop shipping is, because everybody knows what drop shipping is. So you're basically drop shipping real estate. Basically. Obviously, there's way more that goes into it, but you're the middleman. With drop shipping, you're the middleman. You're wholesaling, basically. So, yeah, that's kind of what it's like. It's not exactly the same, but that makes it easy for you guys to understand what that is. So, you could cold call. The other way you could do it is you could go and find an agent. So this is the agent on the MLS. So the MLS is the multiple listing service. So it's Zillow, Redfin. You can access it all for free. So the agent is going to have a deal on the MLS, and you can lowball the agent. You can lowball the MLS listing, get it under contract. And when I say lowball, you're giving them a fair cash offer for the property, but lowball is just kind of funny. So you can lowball the agent that has the listing, which I also made a video about this. So comp the property, then offer what you would need to make 10, 15K on it. Lock that up and sell it to an end buyer. Same thing. So here's your end buyer. This is the guy with the money, okay? Remember him because no matter what method you use, you're going to have this guy. He is the most important part to your wholesale business because without him, you couldn't sell your deals. So a lot of people say that the sourcing the deals is the most important part, which yes, it is because without deals, you can't make money, but you also need buyers. If there was no buyers, then sourcing deals would lead to nothing because you could not sell your deals. You could not wholesale your deals. So no matter what way you do this, you're always going to have to sell it to a buyer. So now let's say you have a little bit of money to spend each month, a couple $1,000s, okay? And also going back to this, you can drive for dollars. I'm going to draw a car. Watch this, guys. Look at that car. Little steam engine coming out of it. Look at that. You could drive for dollars. So if you don't want to do MLS and you don't want to do cold calling, you can drive for dollars. So what does that mean? You drive around your neighborhood, find a property that looks beaten up, call the owner, and sell the deal to the buyer. Same exact kind of thing. That's like literally $0 except for gas money. So obviously with skip tracing, you're going to have some sort of cost. There is a way to do it $0 if you go to truepeoplesearch.com, but their skip tracing isn't the best. So let's say you have some money. Now you can look into mail, or you can look into hiring cold callers. So we're going to do $ cold callers. So you can get VAs that call for you so you don't have to do it, which is super nice. Um, so these VAs will call for you. They'll bring you leads. So they'll bring you people that want to sell. My computer's glitching out again. My Mac is not meant to handle all of these tabs I have open and screen recording. Anyways, you can, these bring you leads, both of these, okay? So this is good. This way you don't have to spend your time cold calling for property owners because it's very draining, but you have to do it when you start. I started that way. Everybody I know has started cold calling or bird dogging, which is a different thing. But if you want to know how to talk to property owners, you have to cold call. If you're going to have a business, you have to cold call. That's how you learn. That's how you learn. You have to talk to thousands of people before you hire these. Or else you won't make it because you won't know how to talk to them. You'll get beat out by people with better sales because at the end of the day, all of this is competitive. There's going to be other people working the same leads as you, no matter how much you like it or hate it. Anyways, so mail and cold calling VAs, which means you hire somebody to cold call for you. Remember we talked about cold calling? This also leads to leads, which you can sell to your buyers. So this is when you're trying to scale more, okay? So that now you're not spending your time sourcing leads by cold calling. You're outsourcing that so you can focus on just the warm leads, closing deals, and making money, okay? So this is going to lead to more money. Spending money in this business is the only way to get consistent income. If you do not spend money, if you base it off commission or something like that, also a different story. But anyways, even if you're taking money out of your profit, that's still spending money, just not up front, right? So you have to spend money to make consistent income in this business. Let's say now you've got money bags, like you have money bags and you want to spend some serious money. You're going to go to TTP. This is the best PPC. So TTP is PPC. And you're probably like, what are all these abbreviations? Super simple. PPC is pay per click. So if you go into Google and you type in sell my house fast for cash, there's going to be sponsored links that are wholesalers paying for PPC, pay per click. That's what it stands for. So it's like Google ads, Facebook ads, all this stuff. That's PPC, pay per click. TTP is run by Brent Daniels, and it is, from my eyes, it is literally the best PPC company you can get. They know what they're doing. I literally have been in their office, and they're in-house. They're sitting there, the people that do the TTP PPC, they're literally sitting there working in Brent's office. It's nuts. It's crazy. He's got a good thing going, and he is the best in the business for PPC. 100%. You will not find somebody better. Now, for this, you're going to have to spend like minimum $5K a month. I myself have never paid for PPC. I've had PPC leads from partners, but I've never paid and done a PPC marketing campaign. So I'm not exactly sure on the numbers, but I believe it's around anywhere to 5 to 50K you can spend a month, even more. I don't think there's a cap to get PPC leads. These are going to be your hottest, okay? So if we go back to cold calling you need about 160 to 120 leads to get a closed deal to sell to this guy, okay? Also PPC goes to this guy. So cold calling, you're going to have a lot of time spent. So you have a 10% contact rate if you're cold calling yourself, which means if you call 100 people, 10 pick up the phone. Out of those 10, probably about 6 to 7 are actual leads. So you're looking at, if 120 leads to a deal, it's a lot of cold calling. Okay, so it's a lot of cold calling. You got to cold call a lot of people. So that's why I'm saying I'm not going to sugarcoat it, because it's going to take a while for you to get your first deal. Mailers, I'm not exactly sure the KPIs. I believe it's like 1 in 20 to 1 in 30 leads to a deal. Same thing with cold calling VAs is it's about 60 to 120 to a closed deal, not contract, closed deal. And if you're virtual, you're going to have about a 50 to 60% fallout rate unless you have your buyers really locked down. Um, because you just can't see the property. So there's going to be stuff like foundation issues that come up and all this stuff. Um, but here's the thing, if you hire VAs, is that you're not going to have you're not going to have all this time spent going through those contact rates, that 10% contact rate. So they're going to do that for you. So you just get the 10 leads that they hit, right? And it's usually around 1 to 2 warm leads a day. Um, so you're looking at significantly less time to your first deal. It's usually 90 days. So there's something called the cash conversion cycle, CCC. This basically means from when you make contact with a lead to when you close the deal and get paid. So with cold calling, it's about 90 days on average, 90 to 120 days. So you're looking at about a third of a year to get paid on a deal if you hire VAs. So be prepared to spend, 3 months of marketing budget before you get a first deal. PPC is your hottest lead source. These people have high intent because they're filling out a form online. So it's nuts. These people have the highest intent. So that's why you pay so much money for these leads. With TTP, I believe they're closing like 1 in 10 to 1 in 12, maybe less. I heard somewhere 1 in 8, but I watched a podcast the other day that said 1 in 10 to 1 in 12. So you're looking at super hot leads, super high motivation, and you're going to close every time you pick up the phone, you're going to close 1 in 10, which is nuts. Absolutely nuts. And you do have to pick up the phone when they call, or else you lose the lead. If you don't get on that phone in 30 seconds, not even exaggerating, 30 seconds, then your contact rate will drop down significantly. There's a high chance you won't even get on the phone with them. So definitely be wary about that. Also, you have PPL, which might actually fall into this category, but we're going to just say it's in this one. PPL is basically PPC. This is pay per lead. So PPC, people are reaching out to you. PPL is a company that does PPC, or it just sells leads basically. So PPL is, in my experience, is not as good as PPC. I only tried one company. I'm not going to name drop companies here, but it seemed like the leads were kind of passed around and like bottom of the barrel. When I would get on the phone with the seller, they would say, hey, yeah, I mean, I filled out that form 5 days ago. And I'd be like, what? So be careful with PPL. It does work. It does work. I have closed a PPL deal before. But just be careful because, a lot of the time PPL could be like recycled leads. So it's just tricky. But this would also get sold to this guy. So see how where all these arrows are pointing? They're all pointing to this guy, right? This is your most important is your buyer. Now, if you're new, I recommend choosing one market, doing either cold calling, mail, or hiring cold callers. I would recommend not doing mail if you're new. I would recommend not doing mail if you're new. Okay? I would hire cold callers or cold call yourself or drive for dollars. And I would find a deal and find buyers, good buyers, which you can look at my other videos. I have videos of how to find buyers. And then sell them and build your buyers list up so you don't have to worry about dispo, because a lot of people will say the hardest part is getting a deal under contract, but the hardest part starts when you get the deal under contract. So you have to manage the seller for those 30 days, make sure they don't freak out. You have to find the buyer. It's just so many moving parts. So if you guys are newer, then I would say find a good buyer first. But this is like the age-old debate. Do you find a deal first or a buyer first? I started out with a mentor and just found deals for him, which taught me a lot about the game, and I respect him very much for taking me on and teaching me. But yeah, I would find a buyer first. Honestly, I just think you're better off that way. Then you're not scrambling to find a buyer. You don't have to really worry about your numbers too much. And then after you do your first deal for one or two deals, then you can expand and find more buyers and find the highest paying buyer and everything. Because if you do stay with one buyer, then they're not going to pay as much as you could make on that deal. So, like, let's say you have a 15K possible assignment. If you only work with one buyer, then they're going to pay you like 5K instead of the 15. So you're missing out on money, but you're learning a lot. So it's a good trade-off, in my opinion. So these are the lead types. You also have JV, joint venture, which is $0 marketing cost usually, unless you have systems and processes in place. I guess you guys can't see that. I'm gonna put it up here. Sorry. So JV is also good. Um, if you guys are newer, there's something called bird dogging. You can bird dog for buyers, which basically means you just bring them other wholesalers deals, and then the buyer pays you like a fee on top. That's good to get it started in real estate. I think that's the fastest way to get your first deal. I do think Pace is right. He talked about this. I do think that's your fastest way to get your deal. It doesn't mean that it's going to be the biggest deal, but you're going to learn a lot about the business and you're going to get a deal faster than if you cold call or drive for dollars, unless you get lucky. But yeah, I think JV is the fastest way to get your deal. So JV is when you find this guy, find a buyer, and then find a wholesaler, which is this guy, and you link them together, right? And you're the middleman of the middleman. My arrows are all over the place, guys. I'm sorry. You're the middleman of the middleman, and you make money from doing so. So a lot of people split 50-50. You can also put a fee on top if you're bird dogging, that kind of thing. Um, but yeah, I think that's your best way to get a deal first. But these are all the different lead types if you don't have money, to if you do have money. So if you guys found this helpful, then like and subscribe, drop a comment. If you guys have any questions, I'll answer them, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.